What is up, everybody from Sweep Nation? It's Rudy Campos Jr., of course, for Sweep the League TV. Be sure to go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. That way you can get all the notifications. All you got to do is search Sweep the League TV, hit subscribe, get those notifications ready. Why? You've got the granddaddy of them all, the big show, Sweep the League TV, Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. with myself and, of course, former NBA player Derek Irvin. Then you've got all the other great shows that surround us here. Sweep Unplugged, which we're doing right now. We have another great episode, another great guest for you. Also, the newly launched STL 316 Wrestling Podcast has already taken off. We've also got grading the market for all of your sports cards needs, collectibles needs. You got the Best Boys podcast about the hockey season. You know what? I guarantee you're going to find something at Sweep the League Network. Don't forget about I Am Refocused Radio with Shemaya Reed. So we got it all going on. And what do we have today? So I've been saying 2025, we start with everything. We started with fitness. We started with finance. Earlier today, we talked some MMA. We started to clear your mind with Brian Haidt when it came to the difference between stress and pressure. Well, what do we got today? If I painted you a picture of the mountains and everything and a great background, the last place a lot of us would think is Montana, but it could be quote unquote somewhere in Montana, as you can tell by the title of the show here. We're going to be talking about a movie coming out called Somewhere in Montana. It's in theaters right now, from what I'm not mistaken. But we got one of the stars. We're blessed to have a star and our first actor on Sweep Unplugged, and hopefully not the last time we get him on the show, because from my reports and for what I've seen, he's an up-and-coming actor who's got a brilliant and bright future. We got him now. Who am I talking about? It is Mr. Matt Drago here. Matt, welcome to Sweep Unplugged, man, and thank you for being with us here.
Rudy, thank you so much for having me on your show. This is the first sports show that I've gotten to be on, and sports is my escape as an actor. I'm a huge LA sports fan, so looking forward to kind of diving deep into the two worlds, and just blessed to be on your show today.
Yeah, we are blessed to have you. Being, the LA sports team, we are in San Antonio, so there's a little Laker, a little Spur rivalry from back in the day, but we're going to keep it as down the middle as possible. So talking to Matt Drago, first things first, you can go to mattdrago.com, get all the information on Matt. Really great guy to talk to. But the one thing we want to hit on first is the fact that there's a movie out. You've got a movie out called Somewhere in Montana, star-studded cast. It's you, it's Michelle Hurd, it's Graham McTavish. Now, Michelle Hurd, I know from Star Trek, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Picard. Okay, so there we go. We got Michelle Hurd. Then you got Graham McTavish. This is the science fiction part. As you can see above me, I've got some comic books. I remember him as King Atlan in the first Aquaman. So that kind of gets the nerd juice flowing with me on that. But nonetheless, you are also a star for Somewhere in Montana. And like I said, I was reading some stuff on you, and one of the things I did read was you're an up and coming actor. You've got a very bright future. You're going to be a name to watch when it comes to Hollywood. But talk to us about Somewhere in Montana, because I was looking at the trailer and I said, this is definitely a movie that we've got to check out ASAP.
Absolutely, Rudy. I mean, it is a story of the times. It's a pivotal story of the times, and I'm just so blessed to be a part of it. We talk about this all the time as actors when we're up and coming, because a lot of people look at it from the outside in as the big break or the booking or whatever. But and yes, there is that part of it. But I was just so blessed to be a part of this real ensemble collaboration and this really important story of the times. Essentially what we're looking at as a storyline is I play a West Coast director, Fabian Verdugo, and I need this location to shoot my last scenes in my film. And it's a legacy piece for me. It's something that I've been working towards my whole life. And I run into a Montana rancher played by my friend Graham McTavish, and our energies just clash. And isn't that where we are right now as a society, where we just don't see eye to eye? We are instantly judging each other. Brandon Smith, the writer and the director of this, wrote such a masterpiece in this script because it's two people that wouldn't normally be in the same room together, and we're put in an impossible situation, and we need to work our way out of it. And what a great story to tell. The energies of our two characters are very on opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm a passionate director, and I'll go down with my ship. I say this all the time, being from Los Angeles. Dreamers are fighters. Don't sleep on dreamers. We are fighters, and that is something that I took to heart when I started crafting the character from the ground up in Fabian. And John, I mean, working with Graham, the ultimate pro, the ultimate collaborator. He's so subtle and specific with what he does in this role as a Montana rancher. We both worked in opposite ends of the spectrum. He actually went to Montana and spent a week there, just to take it in, because a lot of people in Montana, they don't have the quick paced life that we do in cities, right? And a lot of short conversations, so it's very succinct. But his legacy is his ranch. And so I need his ranch as my location for the film. And he needs the money from my film in order to continue his ranch, because he's at a very rock and a hard place situation with not being able to afford the payments on the ranch anymore. So we are both, in a very vulnerable state, and we need each other, right? And that's a great story to tell. And as it stands, it just becomes a story of finding what I consider the highest form of love in mutual respect. But we battle. Brandon it really wrote such a dynamic piece in this film, because we are both the protagonists and the antagonists of our own story. And I think that is very true of where we are as a society in this country right now. So Somewhere in Montana, in theaters now, eventually will go to streaming and VOD, but it is a conversation piece. So if there is a theater near you, give indies a chance right now. Human stories matter. I never thought I'd be saying that up against the machine and AI and all these big budget things, but and those are great too. But indie stories are kind of where film started. And we are just so proud as a cast and crew to put this big story out there in a time where I feel like it's really necessary.
Somewhere in Montana, in theaters now. Again, if it's in your theater, go check it out locally. You definitely got to support indie films. It's 100% true what Matt is saying. Supporting the indie films. I mean, these are, think about it in baseball terms or in sports terms. These are the guys that are kind of getting their break, kind of getting up there. This is where they build their foundation to get up to those big time movies that you see, the million dollar budgets and everything. So again, appreciate Matt Drago coming out here. Somewhere in Montana. You brought up a good point, because just reading the premise of the movie, and like I said, it really intrigued me, because it really is what we see today. I experience it a lot. I'm a very old and a very, wrinkled down 45 years old. So I experience the everyday life of the kiddos out there, and I get them a lot of times in sports talk. So in sports terms, it kind of clashes where Somewhere in Montana goes, because I have the debate of, I'm a hard-nosed old timer, and this is the way I want sports to be, and this is how I know it. Similar to what Graham McTavish's character is, and you've got a younger guy coming in. No, I need to do it this way. It needs to be done this way. I need this. This is the way it should go. The younger generation, that's pretty much what we're seeing right now, even in the sports world. So the one thing about Somewhere in Montana between those two characters is the one word that I think you're trying to get at, and what we're talking about. Eventually, you got to come to a compromise. Eventually, you've got to figure out, because there's no more arguing. You can argue your piece, you can argue that piece, but at the end of the day, it's all about compromise for Somewhere in Montana.
Absolutely. I mean, it really came down to a lot of the conversations that we had off screen for this one, and the relationships that we built. I'm very fortunate that Graham as we left set, I mean, we had such a camaraderie together, and we knew that we were telling this big story together. He's the first person that ever called me mate. I've never been called mate before, right? And it just is that sign of like a camaraderie. A lot of the conversations that we had, because we a lot of the cast and crew, like, we hung out with each other. We couldn't get enough of each other. It felt very early on like a story that was bigger than all of us. But in telling it with Graham, we have this one scene in the film that's 10 pages, and it's just the two of us. And that's not done in modern cinema very often, right? And the way that we wanted to approach it is we wanted to approach it from a very authentic, organic, grounded place, right? We wanted it to be a conversation like we're having right now, Rudy. Two people that are just like having that hard conversation. And the thing that I learned, honestly, just even being on set and being in Montana, is that you don't have to agree on everything. And I think that's a big part that we miss sometimes. And that is a big part of the conversations that Graham and I had when we were crafting the scene together, is we weren't going to see eye to eye on everything, but we were going to see each other. And when we were seeing each other as people, I got to be honest, and I will say this of really just any relationship, once you start to let the other person in, it's very hard to hate them, to cancel them, to judge them to the nth degree. And we really wanted to bring that to the forefront because, like in sports, right? You've got teams of different people and different minds and different beliefs, right? But when it comes to the field of play, like, you are after the same goal. In this country right now, we are after the same goal. We are after togetherness. This was an experiment. America was an experiment, right? Of a lot of different nations coming together to become the United States of America. And I just feel like, as an artist, as an actor, these are the types of stories that I've always dreamed of telling, because I think they can make such an impact in our world.
100%. Matt Drago here, joining us somewhere in Montana. Join us here on Sweep Unplugged, talking to him again. If you want to be able to contact Matt and see everything that he's done, be sure to go to www.mattdrago.com. And speaking of somewhere in Montana, let's go a little bit back here. You've had other roles here. You've got What Would Jesus Do? The Journey Continues. Ridley Scott. A lot of people know Ridley Scott. If you don't know Ridley Scott, you're under a rock somewhere. Ridley Scott's Prophets of Science Fiction, even audio drama podcasts like No Other Way. Those types of roles there. Can you go into a little bit there for some of those roles? Because as an actor or actress, you're getting roles, you're getting parts in movies and TV shows, even, podcast dramas, because those are actually getting very popular right now. My wife listens to podcast dramas all the time, and I see her laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing at? You're not even looking at anything. I'm just listening to this. She loves them. So kind of go back on that right there. The roles you had on, What Would Jesus Do? Prophets of Science Fiction, any roles you've had in the past, getting your way up to somewhere in Montana. So how did the career of Matt Drago start?
Absolutely. I mean, it started all the way back from the very beginning. I come from very humble beginnings in rural Virginia. Both of my parents originally from New York City. And I was just that kid that like really only needed my own creativity. Didn't need a lot of toys, just needed my own thoughts and my own feelings. And then I got up on stage at 4 years old at my local theater, because a lot of film and TV didn't exist in rural Virginia at that point. And it really just became this thing that I felt like was always inside me. But it wasn't until I realized the impact of it. I got my first professional gig in dinner theater, which is actually a really humble experience, because you're on stage and then you're off stage serving tables, right? And, people would come up to me and say these wonderful things. There was one woman when I was playing Little Patrick and Mame that came up to me after the show, and she said, thank you, young man. You really, showed me today that I need to make more of an effort to be close to my son. And it was just like out of like the blue, and the way that it impacted me, because again, these are the things that kind of fuel your career. I always say that like acting sometimes is too outward facing, where people see the red carpets, they see the big awards, they see the shows and things like that. But for a lot of actors, we get into it really, truly like athletes do for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And actors, for the most part, are some of the most selfless people I've ever met. So that continued my journey up to New York City. I'm a grandma's boy, so I got to stay with my grandma through college, 79th and Broadway, all the great Italian food, the chicken marsala, piccata that you could eat, the manicotti, and just really got to be at home in a big city, which really just kind of gave me the opportunity to really focus, right? And I think that there's so many great athletes, since we're on a sports podcast here, and you find out about these families, and you look at these drafts, and sometimes, like, when Jared Verse or Kobe Turner, who is a Virginia boy, by the way,
Yeah.
or Braden Fisk, like, I just saw a video of Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, like, playing in college together and then get drafted by the Rams together. They're both full grown men, and they're in tears when they realized that their bond would extend to the professional realm, right? So much of acting is much like sports, where it's relationships. It's about the people. It's not about the bookings. It's about the people, the relationships. And I feel like the more that you give back to people, the more that you receive. And this role for me, I'll open up about exactly how I got it. It was because of a relationship I had with somebody that I was working with at my local restaurant. Shout out to Zuzu Weingart and Kyle. I essentially had an agent, and she needed an agent, and I'm always a pay it forward kind of guy. So I said, why don't you give my agent a call? She did. She signed with my agent, and then she moved back to Montana from California. And a couple years later, she called me up and she said, hey, I just read my friend Brandon's script, and every time I see the lead character, I see your face. And I was humbled, because again, that's people looking out for each other. And that's kind of the way that it is on or off the field of play. Right. And it was just this extraordinary thing where I just put myself on tape and, left it to the powers that be. But I felt very early on with this script specifically, because I read it 3 times before I ever put myself on tape for it, that I just felt the need to, put myself out there and be curious, because I, as an actor, this is the kind of project that I'd always dreamed of being a part of. And, I ended up being granted the role. And I remember really hanging up the phone, and it's almost like a draft day, right? It's like you hang up the phone, you have this moment of, just pure elation, and, you've got your closest friends and your family around you. But then that thing clicks in, right? And the line that really came to me when I hung up the phone and I got this role was, okay, let's get to work. Because that's when the work starts, as an actor. And every actor has their unique process. I go into backstories. I love, journaling and really getting just a very specific behavioral theme of what makes this guy tick, right? And a lot of Fabian Verdugo, honestly, is a lot of me. It's the first role that I ever fell in love with. And I think that the more I brought myself to this character, the more I felt like, wow, there's a lot to me that I get. I understand why this role was meant for me. And I feel the same way in sports, right? It's like you just kind of have to let the path dictate the path that you go on, and the team that you go on. And I just felt like that was the case with Somewhere in Montana. And it's just been a joy, because again, this is a story and a film that I've always dreamed of being a part of.
You hit it right on the head, the nail on the head right there, because when you said it, when you had mentioned, say, Jared Verse getting that phone call, hey, you've been drafted to the Rams. And of course, you get the tears in your eyes. You get the families patting you on the back. Everybody's excited. And when you were talking about that, the first thing that hit me was when they hang up the phone, it's okay. I'm crying. I'm soaking in the moment, but it's get to work. Just like you said. And I thought, I'm going to ask Matt here, with the first words out of your mouth, it's time to get to work. You just kind of clarified it for me right there, that it is exactly like sports when you get that phone call. Hey, Matt, this opportunity, this role is yours. You got the job. You soak it all in. It's time to get to work. We're talking to Matt Drago. The thing about being an actor is this, who is from a guy who's not an actor. I mean, I did a pre-K play one time where I was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and just because my name is Rudy, they figured, well, he would make a really good Rudolph. And I don't understand that. But as an actor, from the person on the outside, I have a lot of respect. Like I have respect for sports guys because I played sports. But when it comes to acting, you do not even a magnificent job, a superb job, maybe even more, a life changing job, because you're always going to hit one person so deep. And I know that for me, there's been a lot of times I've watched the movie and I'm like, wow, that was me. I'm going through that right there. When you take a role on, is that something that you have in the back of your mind? Like, this is where I'm going to try to reach people with this role because I know that I'm hitting a lot of different people. They're going to see this role, they're going to see this movie and think, you know what? That's me. I can make the same change as Matt did in that role, like he did in the movie. How much of a personal aspect does it go when you do a lot of these scenes and a lot of these characters that you're doing in movies and all?
Yeah, that's a great thought. I mean, I think there's two parts of it. I think it's like kind of yes and no. I think yes is the, foundation really that has already been bestowed upon you within the story, within the words, right? And
Mm.
you take a lot, you glean a lot from that. That would be similar to a franchise, right? Your strength is your foundation, and your foundation in film is your words for the most part, because I always say that actors should do most of their work in pre-production. Much like in sports, champions are made in practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Champions are made off
Oh
the
yeah.
field of play. It's all those reps. So it's a very similar thing with acting, is that we have to find what our process is that makes us tick. And so I think, like, to your point, I think a lot of it is just kind of based in the foundation of that. But I think you have to find your own ways to create that, because again, when you're building that character and you're starting to understand, how he clicks, and you have that process as an actor, then the most interesting part happens, right? And that's essentially game time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's when you kind of literally let all of that go away and you just are in the moment. And when you're in the moment and you have great players around you, because again, actors are called players too,
Yeah.
there's nothing like it, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if that ball, is going to be caught in the snow. You don't know if, you'll get that footing for, that play, that sack, or be able to rush the line just right, And so I feel like a lot of acting, because I'm such a lover of sports, it's very synergistic, in the ways that, the best parts of art are almost the best parts of sports, is the unknown. And so I think the control that you have is the work, is the preparation, and then when you get to set, you're around your people and it's game time.
Awesome. Talking to the star of Somewhere in Montana, Mad Drago here on Sweep Unplugged. You want to get the content, definitely go to Sweep the League TV on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Sports wise, man, let's take you out of your comfort zone here, which is the acting part, and let's dive into sports. You're talking about LA sports. You're a big LA sports guy.
Yeah.
We only have one team in San Antonio, and that's the Spurs, which doesn't have equal amount of Laker titles, but we're getting there. Eventually, we're getting there. Sport wise, give me some LA sports players. If you've got entire teams, give me the background on Matt Drago's sports mind here so we can kind of dive in there and see, was he a Showtime fan of the Lakers? Was he Kobe and Shaq? I mean, does he go as far back as say, I didn't quite see him, but I know about Eric Dickerson in the Ram days? Or are you just mesmerized by Shohei Otani's 50-50 season? What drives Matt on the sports side of things?
All of the above. And I had tickets actually to game 6 of the World Series, but it didn't
Oh
happen.
man.
So I would have been there for that. Yeah, all of the above, all of those great stories, all of those great franchises. But, since the Rams are current for where we're at right now, I got to be honest, growing up, actually being a Yankee fan, believe it or not, because they were my hometown for a while.
Yeah.
And honestly, I say this all the time. Like, I just feel like with the new stadium, they lost a lot of the heart of what that franchise is about. And
Yeah.
I was a season ticket holder. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people that were season ticket holders in my section behind home plate. Again, I went with my dad. We had those 2 tickets behind home plate. We lost all our postseason priority with the new stadium, and it really was heartbreaking. A lot of the, kids and families that we grew up with in our section no longer could afford those tickets. We were
Yeah.
put out all the way out in right field, and it just kind of lost that je ne sais quoi as a team for me, because I felt like they, kind of screwed us over, right? So it kind of hurt.
Right.
It was kind of a interesting time in my life because it was a time where I felt like maybe I needed to move anyway. And so I moved to LA, and I realized the strength in LA because I think LA as a city is still very underrated. I think with what we're going through right now with the wildfires, I mean,
Yeah.
LA is strong. There are a lot of really strong people here, and don't sleep on dreamers, because again, dreamers are fighters. I know this of me. Some of the people that I know, like, we'll do anything to keep our dream alive, right? And so I think that, the coming together of what we're going through right now kind of speaks to my Rams. And obviously, we had a heartbreaking loss, but I'm so proud of my team. I'm so proud of my franchise. I think Les Snead is a masterclass this year in drafting, in what he was able to do with the second youngest defense in the league and just bringing them together. We were counted out. We were 1-4. And I got to be honest, Rudy, I put $200 to buy myself a Super Bowl ticket after week 4 when we beat the 49ers, because I was like, you know what? I see a path for us. And I really did. And you know what? I'll do that over and over and over again, because someday I'm going to get to a Super Bowl. My wife actually went last year. Her dad took her, took her to the Super Bowl. So, I really want to see my Rams in the Super Bowl, but I'm proud regardless. And you have to do this because only one team can be victorious. But the way that we did it, remember that we're one of the 2 teams that has ever played a home playoff game not in their home stadium. And it would have meant so much to us this week, this Sunday, to have that home field advantage. And I think it would have been another Andrew Whitworth, speech, or AD, Rachel Patton, just what an incredible performance by her. Sports are the ultimate escape. And as an artist, they're my ultimate escape. And I think one thing that can really be understated or overstated is how much sports and sports franchises can lift whole cities up, because they give people an escape and they give people. So I don't like to be the kind of person that hates on other people's teams, because I respect that a lot of them are from there, and it's built into the tapestry of who they are, right? And it's what they escape to every Sunday, or maybe for the national pastime, or on the ice, or on the court, whatever it may be. So I respect that part of it. I don't really like the online banter that gets ugly. I like it to be all positive. There was one person recently that came at me, and I'm like, dude, like our city's on fire right now. Like, I'm just embracing the fact that I'm proud of my team. Like, you don't have to come at me and gloat that your team won. I think it's a little childish, honestly, because ultimately, like, yeah, we root for our teams. Sometimes we get a little bit too, big about it. But like, when you see the way that Coach McVay leads this team, and, this young team on defense, and what, Chris Shula has been able to do with our defense this year, and Matthew Stafford, he's such an ambassador for the team, and Puka Nakua, who is a stud, and Kieran, who is a G, and Cooper Kupp, who's just the vet, and I just like, I really love what we did this year, and I love how we lifted the city up. And if you look at some of the things that he said, it's kind of the way I almost go about my role sometimes. Like, I fire myself up, because ultimately, like, this is what I love. Like, acting is my field of play. So, since it's current, I gotta be honest, like, after the Rams lost this weekend, there are 2 times in my life that I have literally started crying after a loss. One was in 2001 when I was a Yankee fan after 9/11, when we lost the World Series, and I just was like, Like, I was devastated because I felt like it could have lifted the whole city up. I felt like we needed it, and I understand the Yankees are a very, very, the right, obviously so many franchise wins. Like, it's like it's silly to say that, but I grew up when, they weren't winning every year like my
Yeah.
father. They were winning every year. But I think for me, like, this year rooting for the Rams just gave me a lot. Like, it really gave me a lot. And I wasn't really just rooting for the points on the board, the wins. I was rooting for the team, and I think that's a big part that we lose in sports sometimes when you get to know the players. I follow a lot of them on social media. I even follow, Josh Carty, our kicker and our punter,
Mhm.
and I just like the stories that go into the sacrifice that these guys put in day in, day out. It can get you emotional, right? And again, it can be an escape for you. So I always say sports really do. They are a part of the tapestry of the city. And I'm really proud of my Rams this year. I'm really proud, regardless win or loss, at the end of the a day, it's how you play the game. And I say the exact same thing as being an actor.
Coach Gio, one of the hosts here at Sweep the League, is a massive Rams fan. We call him the Rambassador. So he's huge as a Ram fan. And beginning of the year, we were saying that they're struggling, but that Rams team is one of the few teams in the NFL that I can legitimately say, barring injury, is built from top to bottom. And it even goes for Sean McVay. I mean, the guy is in the perfect spot, the perfect team, very smart coach, very young at that still. So the future for the Rams is bright. Unlike what you talk about heartache. See, I'm unfortunately am an Atlanta Falcon fan. And I get so much crap for the latest Super Bowl debacle of the 28-3 lead over the New England Patriots. And I mean, yeah, I get all that, but I also understand that sports is sports. And I've seen most recently with Mark Andrews dropping the ball and, the Ravens heartbreak and all this. And it saddens me to see a lot of people give him, all the way death threats that you've been hearing and stuff like that. Sports, anything in life is not that critical when, especially sports, to where you've got to be that type of person on social media. I mean, hey, the
Agreed.
Falcons, they broke my heart to the point where I was filling out applications for other teams for the following year. But at the end of the day, I've been a Falcon fan forever, and sports is sports. It's meant to be one thing. It's an outlet. It's a
Yeah.
getaway from what is really hurting us in life, the pressure of work, stress of work. Sometimes families just going bonkers. Sports is what it's meant to be, and it's an outlet. So I'm glad you brought that up. And here at Sweep the League and Sweep Unplugged, we like to do something when we end the show here. But before we do it, I want to give you the platform. If you want to plug anything more, again, somewhere in Montana's out. The star of the show, we've got him here. So I've got evidence here, guys. He's right there. I've got evidence. We've got the star of somewhere in Montana, Matt Drago. Matt, if you want to promote anything here, by all means, because after this, we've been launching a little segment called the Top Five, and we put you on the spot for something. So here's your platform to launch whatever you want to do and talk about whatever you want.
Sure. Well, I'll try to tie in the two worlds together. It's the first time that I've actually watched an end of season press conference, and I watched Sean McVay's, and it really comes down to leadership and team. Film, like sports, is the ultimate team sport. It is, and you need people around you that are masters of their craft, whether it be a coach, a director, a cinematographer, a coordinator, right? So I'm kind of tying in these two worlds right now because sports are my escape, and because I'm on an awesome sports show with you right now, Rudy. So I really do. I love the collaborative arts of film. Because the last day that I was on set, it was a great conversation that I had with Brandon Smith, the writer director, and he was literally pointing out different people in our crew, whether it be Troy packing up the truck, or Jason gaffing that light shot, or Travis getting the sound just right when we had a rainstorm coming in. It takes a team in life. And it takes in your life as an actor, your representation, whether it be your manager. I just signed with Richard John Martin at Ignite Talent, HRI, Tanya Kleckner. Shout out to my PR team, Portrait PR, Mia Hansen. These are the people that can kind of keep me in my lane to focus on what I do, which is to act and to put good things on tape and to build my process. That way I can just focus on playing the game. And playing the game as an actor is really just the joy of it sometimes. And yes, there's going to be bumps and bruises. There's going to be, to your point, heartbreaking for Mark Andrews. And I felt with him too, because it's so hard to get to that moment and have it get taken away from you. But the resilience of athletes is much like the resilience of actors. And so there's nothing better in the world when you can really find the joy in what you do every day. And as I'm looking at these press conferences of the Rams, after that, honestly, gut-wrenching loss where I started sobbing. And I'll be completely honest, because of how much I felt like it meant, not just to me personally, but to our city. I thought to myself, that's heartbreaking, but look at my team, and I'm proud of my team. And when I think about Graham, and I think about Michelle, and I think about Brandon and Eden, the producer, and Joe, the producer, and all the people that are part of the team in Somewhere in Montana, I'm thinking to myself, God, there is nothing better in the world than to be part of a team, regardless of the field of play that you're in. And it's why I love acting. It's why I love collaborating. And I'll keep doing it for now, as long as I live.
Those are the words of Matt Drago, Somewhere in Montana, star of Somewhere in Montana. I could not have said it better myself. You did a fantastic job there with that message. We're going to have to replay that a ton of times, especially for some of you guys out there that keep giving us crap. We're going to replay that for you until you get Matt's message clearly. So what are we doing now? The top 5 here. So got to hit the music. So we got music in the background going. And here we go. This past week, actually, was it this week? Yeah, this past week, Matt. Got a phone call from former NBA player and brother of George Gervin, Derek Gervin, who's a host on Sweep the League. He goes, can you name me your top 5 actors of all time? And I said, yeah, no problem. Hour and a half later, I'm like, I can't. There's no way. It's impossible to get the top 5 actors. So what do we do? Talk about it on the show. He drops his. I drop mine. We have another local guy, Jeff Garcia. Shout out to him for Locked On Spurs. He's a big guy like me as far as entertainment does. He could barely do it. So I figured we got Matt coming on. Let me put Matt on the spot. He's an actor. He does more than all of us here when it comes to acting. So your top 5 actors on Sweep Unplugged. Matt, the floor is yours.
The pressure is on. Oh man, it probably ebbs and flows for me, but Pacino and De Niro are 2 actors that I've always looked up to, and what they do and the work that they do and the subtlety and the depth of their work for an actor has always inspired me. It's always given me a lot to learn from. I find myself looking at their scenes on repeat a lot because of just how taken I am with the just pure depth of their work in anything, right? So I gotta put those kind of at the top of my Mount Everest, so to speak. Then I love the Rocky movies. I grew up on the Rocky movies. There's a great villain, by the way, in Rocky 4. What's his last name again?
Drago. Ivan Drago. Definitely know him.
So I got the same name. I'm the Sicilian version. It's one of my favorite movies, ironically. I happen to have the same name. I actually almost booked a role with Dolph Lundgren, and I probably would have been the first thing I said on set was Ivan Drago, Matt Drago, and I would have said Drago even though I pronounced it Drago. But that's definitely all the Rockies, Sylvester Stallone. Again, those movies fire me up. And so I have to put Sylvester Stallone up there. Tom Hanks, the subtlety of him, the craft, is incredible. How he puts it on a dime is mesmerizing. I could watch him do anything, and there's just, gosh, the fifth one is going to be tough because there's a lot of them for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the great Robin Williams comes to mind right now.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot of, just the incredible roles. Specifically, two of my favorites are Hook and Mrs. Doubtfire, and just how he brings it out. And again, the subtlety, the depth of his work just really connects with me on a deeper level. But I could name more. I mean, Martin Short, Steve Martin, just their comedic chops, but also, again, I don't know, again, I could keep going. But acting is really wonderful, because what you can do as an actor, almost like you can do with an athlete, is you can study different people's crafts. And it's like AD, right? It's like I saw Jared Verse practice with him one day, and I'm like, okay, Jared Verse is going to be good because he's got somebody good around him. So I feel like actors can do the same thing, and drawing the little nuances that we love about some of our favorite actors and adopting them, and trying to emulate them in the best way that we can.
I told you it was difficult, man. You're thinking, I've got 5. Well, wait a minute. No, I've got 10. Oh, I can't break it down. It's too many. Because, I mean, you've got the lengths of like Tom Cruise. Denzel Washington was a very popular one in the top 5. I mean, you start naming guys and you're like, how did I
missed him?
I was like, oh my God, no, you can't take them out. These are the top 5. So, yeah, it's always a tough call when it comes to the top 5 here on Sweep the League. Matt, I appreciate you joining us here on Sweep the League. Again, be sure to check out Somewhere in Montana, star Matt Drago. Definitely a very, very, very uplifting film. Very good film for you to get out there to the theater or watch. It's going to be on video on demand, VOD actually, and streaming here pretty soon. But to get a hold of Matt Drago, mattdrago.com. Great guest, as you can tell. One of the best guests that we've had here on Sweep the League and Sweep Unplugged. So, Matt, I really appreciate you joining us here today. And I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to convince the wife. Today's the anniversary, our wedding anniversary. So I'm going to be
happy anniversary.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to talk. Let's see if we can find it in the theater here, because I definitely want to check it out. But do what I do. Check it out. Support Matt Drago, Somewhere in Montana. And again, appreciate you joining us here on Sweep Unplugged. And before we go, like we always say, until we sweep the league again, we'll see you later, knuckleheads.